Welcome back to the Emily Show, first episode of 2026, Law Nerds, and we were very busy on stream last week, but now we are getting back into the Emily Show with a case that I have been asked about quite a lot, and I don't know how to express how much quite a lot is. Until there was an arrest in this case, I was hesitant based on how much rampant and running speculation I saw online, because it's really hard prior to an arrest to have really good information, because when there's active and ongoing investigations, law enforcement tends to be pretty closed-lipped. So today we are going to be talking about the tragic double homicide in Ohio of the Tepes. I don't know if I was asked about this a lot because people had so many questions, or because he is a dentist and so is Dr. B, or because there was just not a lot of information. I don't have more information than y'all do. But what we do have today are the court records, the arrest information, the probable cause affidavit, brief though it is, and what happens next. Because I am recording this over the weekend, there will be a court hearing on Monday, January 12th. We will talk about what to expect at that hearing, what I expect at that hearing, and what's going to happen next in this case. If you are new to this case or have not heard of this case out of Ohio, I'm also going to give an overview of what we know now based on information released from law enforcement, 911 calls released from law enforcement, and then, of course, the arrest and probable cause affidavit. So there is a lot to go over, but at least there has been an arrest. It is not lost on me that this arrest over the weekend came just a day before the funeral for Spencer and Monique Tepe. I know the timing is probably coincidental, but it is striking and noted. So hopefully with that arrest coming right before the funeral, their friends and family members and community at least know that the court process has begun. And let's talk about this case. We're going to get into it. I'm legal analyst Emily D. Baker, yes, also a lawyer, and this is The Emily Show. I break down the pop culture, entertainment, and high-profile cases that we're all talking about. I know you want the facts, so let's get into it. For those of you that have not heard about this case, we're going to start a little bit at the beginning on December 30th, and then we will get to the point where we are talking about the arrest on January 10th, 2026, of Monique Tepe's ex-husband, Michael McKee. So that is where we are leading up to. So we're going to go back in time a little bit before we talk about the arrest, the court hearing that's going to happen on January 12th, and what comes next. Let's talk about the background. On December 30th, 2025, coworkers of Spencer Tepe called for a welfare check. There was a lot of speculation online about how quickly coworkers called for a welfare check. What I will note is that Spencer Tepe is a dentist. Oftentimes, even though the dental office is listed as opening at one time, the doctor will be there in advance of that. It is incredibly unusual in my experience. We're not talking about Charlie Adelson. It is incredibly unusual in my experience for docs to not show up when they have patients listed without a call, without a heads up, without anything. And so the first 911 call that came in on December 30th is from the owner of the practice, who was out of town on vacation, saying it is incredibly unlike Dr. Tepe to not be at work, and we have not heard from Dr. Tepe, and we can't get in touch with his wife, which is almost more unusual. And that doesn't surprise me either, because, well, that's so similar to, hey, if we can't reach B, we'll just call Emily. It's not unusual to me at all. So it makes sense to me that the office would be concerned that their doc had not shown up, and he has a substantial commute to work. It seems about a 75-mile commute from his home in Columbus, Ohio to the dental practice. So it's unusual for somebody to not call and say, I'm on the way, I'm running late. I'm not surprised. People were shocked, like, whose boss calls after somebody's running an hour late? Like, my bosses never would, because I'm going to be late and I'm going to be there and you'll know where I'm going to be and I'll keep you in the loop. But when it's out of character, they were concerned. And it seems that friends and coworkers were substantially concerned. There were numerous calls for a welfare check. law enforcement went out to do a welfare check, and it wasn't until more than a week later that law enforcement released information stating that when they went and did that initial welfare check, the officer went to the wrong home. So that is not helpful either. A friend ended up getting into the home. They had a keypad key code. So I assume that the friend had key code access or had called a family member to get key code access, because the friend also called 911, had arrived at the home, heard children inside the home. The children of Spencer and Monique are 1 and 4 years old and were in the home, and law enforcement subsequently said that they were distressed but unharmed. The friend who got into the home discovered Spencer Tepe, called 911, told them that there was a body, that there was blood, that he was by his bed, and then law enforcement came out to the home and began their investigation. Very quickly after December 30th, law enforcement put out information that both Monique and Spencer Tepe had been shot, that there were casings left in the home. There was no weapon found in the home. There was no sign of forced entry, no sign of robbery, burglary, no sign that things were taken, that there were things damaged in the home. And again, the children were in the home and distressed but unharmed. The investigation after that point continued on. What was known publicly was not very much. The kids were with family members. Family members had released limited statements. A funeral was set for January 11th, and police, in the days leading up to the eventual arrest on January 10th, had released some information that we're going to take a look at, including the 911 calls, and police had released a video of an individual who was walking in the area of the home very early in the morning of December 30th. So police started to piece together a timeline, and in the very brief probable cause affidavit that we're going to look at from court, we understand how law enforcement started to piece together a suspect who was out of state. So we're going to take a look at the 911 calls and the information that we have and the arrest, because once we get into court, it is, again, with a double homicide, going to take some time. And the arrest in this case happened out of state. So the arrest not happening in Ohio means there is likely going to be at least some extradition procedures that need to happen, unless the defendant who's been arrested is willing to waive extradition. We saw that, I think, most recently in the Kohberger case, where he was arrested in Pennsylvania, waived the extradition proceedings, agreed to extradition, and was then pretty quickly transported back to Idaho. That's the most recent case I think we've covered where we saw extradition in that way. When we take a look at this case, there are a few things that stand out to me. One, the fact that the kids are unharmed. I am incredibly thankful for it. This, based on what police have released, happened in the very early morning hours of December 30th. And hopefully the kids have no memory of what happened and were still in their rooms when they were located. That is what I am hoping for. At 1 and 4, very possible that the kids were still in their room. And yes, probably distressed, but hopefully they did not see anything that happened in the home and they are with family members. 2, when you have both of the adults in a home deceased by gunshots and no gun in the home, police are immediately going to start looking for how did someone get into the home, who got into the home, and why, because this looks more targeted than a break-in to steal things from the home, especially if you don't have drawers open, items missing, and things like that. Next, they are going to start looking at everything digital. Ring cameras from the neighborhood, any other street cameras, license plate readers, cell phone tower dumps, like we learned so much about in, well, the Kohberger case and the Adelson case. And so all of those things are going to start being grabbed by police to narrow this down, because it does look more targeted than a crime of opportunity or a more random type of crime. So that's where police would have been narrowing their focus. And again, this went from December 30th to January 10th without a suspect named and without an arrest. And then on January 10th, the arrest information came out very quickly. A suspect name had never been put out in the media until the arrest was made. So as we look at the 911 calls, these are coming from CBS. They have the time of the calls, which is very helpful. So you hear the time and the order. I have seen very mixed information about whether all these calls are from coworkers or coworkers and friends. It seems to me that there is a mix of coworkers and friends in these calls, but you will hear that. Does it matter for our purposes? Not that much, because it's all going to end up as part of whomever's on the witness list, and the prosecutors and detectives will know exactly who folks are and what their relationships are to the parties. Though, again, because we are in the very early phases of this case, there are going to be a lot more questions than answers at this point.
Columbus Police, Tech 107.
Yes, I would like to ask for a wellness check on an individual at their home.
And this is from 8:58 a.m. on December 30th.
Well, I'm currently in the state of Florida. I'm on vacation, but this individual, Spencer, works with me, and he did not show up to work this morning, and we cannot get a hold of him or his family.
He didn't show up to work?
Correct.
And that's dispatch
responding.
responding.
Does he have medical problems, or?
No, and he's been reliable, and we cannot get in touch with him, his wife, his family, anybody that lives in that house.
So
There's
you're
2
in
kids
Florida.
in the home. I'm in Florida. I own the business. I was informed by my employees that he was not at work, and he runs the office.
Anyone who works in medical, it would be very unusual for a doc not to show up for patients. I imagine there are already probably just a few people in the office over the holidays, but a lot of people try to get those appointments because they have time off of work. It would be unusual for a doc to not show up with no communication. They can't get in touch with anyone, which is also unusual. I know there were people who had many thoughts about whose boss calls for a welfare check after an hour. I think given all the circumstances that it is not the wildest thing to me that they are concerned that they can't reach anyone.
Did you receive information that he may have been involved in an accident, or?
No, ma'am. I just know that he is he is always on time, and he would contact us if there was any issues whatsoever. And I just don't know how else to say this. We're very, very concerned because this is very out of character. And we can't get in touch with his wife, which is probably the more concerning thing.
Okay. We will send somebody over as soon as we have an officer available, okay?
So I don't know if there's more circumstances that the office is aware of. I don't know if the office has had other dentists have medical issues or what have you. We never know where they're coming from and what their perspective is, but they thought something was incredibly strange, and they weren't the only ones, because other people who are friends with the Tepes were also concerned and calling. And there are, I think, 4 calls that we're going to go through of them asking for help and asking for welfare checks because people are incredibly concerned. We will see, I think, as this case goes forward, the context around that concern, but it's going to take time. We saw that when we finally got to trial in the Brian Walsh case, where you heard why her friends and coworkers were concerned and why, when Brian Walsh finally told work, hey, I haven't seen her in a couple of days, work is like, why are we not immediately calling the police? So we will learn more. We don't know yet.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And again, that first welfare check, law enforcement went to the wrong location for the welfare check, which we heard the chief of police acknowledge over a week after this point in time. This is the second call now from 9:56 a.m., so almost an hour later.
Okay, what's the emergency there? Police or medical?
Maybe both, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of doing the
We already
wellness.
had a call out there. They knocked on the front door and back door multiple times, and there was no answer.
Unfortunately, they were at the wrong location, which we know now.
Yeah, no answer. I can hear kids inside, and I swear I think I heard one yell, but we can't get in. At this point, I don't know if I need to break the door in or just get in the house or what. So.
Okay, were you out there when the police was out there?
I wasn't. I just got here about 5 minutes ago.
Well, the police weren't out there either, as it turns out.
Okay, all right, well, we'll send them back out to you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. Okay, what's the emergency there?
This is a third call. This is at 9:58 a.m. This call is from another individual at the dental office, which is why I think it seems to me that you have individuals from the dental office and individuals who are friends, because it seems that the dental office was calling anyone that they could get in touch with, and then everyone became worried. That is how that seems to me. And so having the dental office call back in such quick time at 9:58 indicates to me the person who called at 9:56 is not one of the parties from the dental office, or they would have spoken.
Our boss did not report for work. We haven't been able to get a hold of him for 3 hours. We are on site and we can hear.
Okay, I just talked to somebody there.
Okay, I'm just making sure somebody called.
Yeah, I just got a call from somebody and sent it back up for dispatch.
Okay.
Dispatch, people are worried. They're worried.
Are you there? Because you're not showing that you're at the
No,
location.
I'm en route there.
Okay, what is your name?
My name is Cam, C-A-M.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.
The next call that comes in is from the individual that was able to get into the house. I would imagine that family members, because they had a code on the door, that family members would have a code and that someone got it. That is what I imagine how they got into the house. So this next call is incredibly sad. And I feel for the person who was like, I need to get into the house and see if they need help, and found that both of these victims have been shot and killed.
Got several calls on that. What's changed?
This call is from 10:03 a.m. Dispatch is saying we've gotten several calls. What's changed since the last call? Unfortunately, quite a lot, dispatch.
Since the last person I talked to.
There's a body.
There's a body inside?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
What's going on there?
There's a body. Our friend wasn't answering his phone. We just did a wellness check. We just came here, and he appears dead.
Okay.
There's blood. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed, and there's blood. I can't get closer to see more than that.
And that's fair. I can't get closer to see more than that. It's fair.
You can tell he's obviously not breathing or anything.
Yeah.
Is it like kind of like huddle, like, you know, does he look like?
It doesn't. It's huddled. I can't look.
Okay. All right. Understand. Okay. And then when was the last time somebody spoke to him?
Yesterday, I suppose.
Yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
How old is he?
So this is from the 29th to the 30th. And this is now at 10 o'clock in the morning. The first call was just before 9 o'clock. And we're now seeing someone get the code, get in. And that's my assumption. But someone get into the home and find the victims here and say, can we please just get someone here?
37.
37. Okay. Is he like a drug user or anything like that?
No.
Okay. All right. Just because that's a really young age.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. All right. We're on our way.
And then this is clipped back to the rest of this call.
And he is a friend of yours, or you work with him?
Yeah. He's a friend. Yeah.
Okay, we do have officers responding there. Do you know if he's been ill or anything like that?
No. I was just with him yesterday.
Okay. Do you know if he does drugs or anything?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll just talk to the officers when they get there, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. We've got several.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? They're like, okay, well, just wait there. It's like, great. Thanks. We'll just wait here. And that is really the information, other than statements from police that had been known about this case prior to last week, of course, ahead of the arrest, but prior to last week when police released a video and asked for community assistance and information. We're going to take a look at the post from law enforcement in Columbus, and then we'll take a look at the video that was released by them. Leonard, we're going to take a quick moment to talk about something that makes my life a lot easier, and that's today's sponsor, Hungryroot. As a very ADHD person in a very ADHD household, eating is one of those things that takes tons of executive functioning. Finding something that takes the pain points out of getting healthy, nutritious, delicious food is a 10 out of 10 for me. Hungryroot has a ton of flexibility because you can order groceries or meals or a combination of the two You can pick breakfast, lunch, or dinner. One of the things that we get delivered from Hungryroot every single time we order are the most delightfully perfect sour gummies. They are so sour and so crunchy and so delicious, and I have never seen them anywhere else. And it all just gets delivered to your door. It's easy to track, it's easy to change delivery dates, and it's easy to pause when you need to. Leonard, I know you're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do, and for a limited time, you get 40% off. Yes, you heard me right. 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. And they let you pick which one it is, which is one of my favorite things. So just go to hungryroot.com/Leonard and use code Leonard. That's hungryroot.com/Leonard with code Leonard to get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. And let's get back to today's episode. This is a post from the Columbus Division of Police on their Facebook page where they seem to be most active, saying, quote, detectives believe the murder of Mr. and Mrs. Tepe, or Dr. and Mrs. Tepe, occurred sometime between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock a.m. on the morning of December 30th in the upstairs of their residence. Recovered video footage shows a person of interest walking in the alley near the Tepe's residence during that time frame. We have received and are continuing to receive numerous tips from the community, which our detectives are following up on. If you have any information that could lead to the identity of the person in this video, and then they list their phone numbers, they provide a QR code for people to upload any video that they might have or what have you, and then they also link a number to Crime Stoppers. They go on to say, we want to thank the community for the tips we have received. We know there are questions and concerns surrounding this tragic incident. Detectives are working diligently to solve this case. We will continue to update you as the investigation progresses. Please note, this video has been divided into sections to accommodate social media aspect ratio requirements. I'm going to go grab that video in a more full screen manner from social media because the one that is cropped and cropped and cropped is just hard to see. This was put out on January 5th, 2026, just 5 days before the eventual arrest made in this case. And this is the video from the Columbus Division of Police as put onto Facebook by the Columbus Dispatch outlet, who has been, as you can imagine, covering this case quite a bit. It is always my preference to find local media that is tuned into a case when I can, and that is what we are seeing here. This is first a Nest branded camera with an individual walking on very snowy streets. This is in the area of the victim's home. Law enforcement has the timestamp of this, so they know when this was. And there are multiple different camera angles, it seems here, and they edit between them to release this as a request for information from the public. But this video is going to come in pretty critically as we look at the information from court and the arrest of the suspect in this case. In the last clip of this video, it looks like they are walking towards an area with a few more cars parked. And I'm just making note of that because vehicles are going to be quite important in this case. But video all the way across and cameras all the way across. I don't imagine these are all cameras from the victim's home. I imagine that these are cameras from the neighborhood, as law enforcement said in their statement that they've already received information from the community. So as of January 5th, the Columbus police were looking for more information. On January 8th, we saw an interview with the chief of police, who then clarified that the officer who originally responded to the welfare check went to the wrong home. And I'm going to link that interview down below for you, because we are going to go to the court documents to take a look at all the arrest information and then some of the surrounding information that we know about the defendant in this case. So taking a look at the information from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, this is in Illinois, near Rockford, Illinois. Some of you know why I'm familiar with Rockford, Illinois. Some of you are like, Emily, what are you talking about? Phantom Regiment. It's always back to band things. This is the original booking information for Michael David McKee, showing the booking date of January 10th, 2026 at 11:57 a.m. with name information. Next court date is listed as January 12th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. Custody status is hold for out of state. Charges also say hold for out of state, but I have the charging documents and we're going to go over those next. What does hold for out of state mean? Hold for out of state means that, well, this is not an Illinois case. This is an Ohio case. He's going to need to go to court in Illinois to begin the extradition process. They can't just take him and send him to Ohio when arrested in Illinois. There is due process that needs to happen. Now, he could go to court on January 12th, Monday afternoon, and waive formal extradition proceedings and say, yes, just send me to Ohio and we will begin the process there. Or he could choose to fight extradition and say, no, prove to me that I am the person that they need in Ohio and prove that I am the person that there's a warrant for in Ohio. It is not prove that I am the person who did the thing. It is prove that I am the person that there is a warrant for out of state and that I can be extradited. Will he be appointed an attorney in Illinois for this proceeding? Yes, if he has not already retained his own attorney. Will the lead detectives from Ohio already be in Illinois? Yes, they will. And I would be surprised if they weren't there when the arrest went down, at least the lead detective. If they identified a subject and they went and got the arrest warrant and they worked with local law enforcement and they would have likely had somebody sitting on his house and keeping eyes on him so that they could effectuate an arrest in a as safe as possible and easy way for them as possible. I imagine they would have had someone keeping an eye on him for a period of time before the arrest, and it would give the lead investigator time to be in Illinois at the time. We even saw that in the Donna Adelson case where you had part of the investigative team working in Tallahassee to make sure that the warrants were being done while the investigating officer was on his way down to Miami in case Donna Adelson was going to board that plane and they needed to arrest her. So I would not be surprised if the lead investigator was already in Illinois at the time of this arrest. I don't think that this was a circumstance where they were scrambling the way that they were in the Adelson case, but who knows? And if it is, we'll find out later. So the extradition proceedings, we will see what happens on Monday, but it's not going to be the arraignment and beginning of the case. He's going to have to be transported back to Ohio for that. So hopefully that answers some of the legal questions. Let's take a look at the complaint and the probable cause affidavit from Ohio. So we are taking a look now at the court documents from Franklin County Municipal Court in Ohio. This was filed January 10th, 2026 at 10:57 a.m. Emily, when did they arrest him? Well, it says 11:57 a.m. Here is the one note I will make because somebody is going to ask, Emily, that seems very fast. Yes, and he was booked in Central Time. This was filed in Eastern Time. So yeah, about 2 hours. I imagine that they were, as I said, already on surveillance of this defendant prior to filing and obtaining the arrest warrant. So these were officially stamped at 10:57 a.m. in Ohio. That would have been Eastern. He was arrested and booked at 11:57 a.m. Central. So that would have been 12:57 Eastern. Hopefully that helps. So 2 hours is still pretty quick. But that also indicates to me that they knew where he was, knew his pattern of life, and knew that they were preparing to arrest him. Complaint. So these are the charges in this case as they have been filed at this point. It says complaint being duly sworn states that the above named defendant at Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio on or about the 30th day of December 2025 did knowingly cause the death of another, to wit, Monique Frances Tepe by means of shooting her with a firearm. It lists the code, it lists the police department, it lists the sworn notary because the investigating officer would have sworn the complaint and the probable cause, which we will get to next. It shows the information for the investigating officer. I redacted out the information for the defendant and his location. The location of the homicide is at this point fairly well known. It lists the charges. It lists the offense date at 12/30/2025, and it lists the offense time at 3:52 a.m., which is fairly specific. And I wonder if there is more on cameras or on devices that narrow down that time frame for them as it's listed in the complaint. The second charge in the complaint reads the same as to victim Spencer Lewis Tepe, also by means of shooting with a firearm, listed the same date and time. And then we get to the brief but informed probable cause affidavit. So in the probable cause affidavit, we see it is sworn by who I am assuming that this is the lead investigator. And this is what the probable cause affidavit states. It states, on December 30th, 2025 at 9:57 a.m., Columbus Police patrol officers were dispatched to the location on a check on the well-being of a Dr. Spencer Tepe who had not shown up for work. Officers arrived and found Dr. Tepe and his wife, Monique Tepe, deceased inside, suffering from gunshot wounds. 2 minor children were found inside the home unharmed. Columbus Fire Medic number 7 responded and pronounced both victims deceased at 10:11 a.m. Columbus Police Homicide Unit 2 was advised, responded, and initiated an investigation. During the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. The suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were able to identify this vehicle further and link it to Michael McKee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of Mr. McKee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. So while that is a brief probable cause affidavit, there is a lot of information that we can glean from this. First of all, the video that they released asking for more information is the person they believed was the suspect. And they had more video that we did not see that were able to connect a individual suspect, now the arrested Michael McKee. They were able to connect Michael McKee to a vehicle. What do we know that they also would have done? Well, they would have gone and found all of the toll roads, which to get from Illinois to Ohio, I don't know if you can do that without toll roads, and I don't know if you can do that without license plate readers. Once they were able to see a vehicle, they would start being able to identify license plates and license plate readers. I mean, Illinois is just the land of toll roads, so if any tolls were paid, they might also have video at the different toll stops to show that he was driving the car. And if you are going to be on a turnpike or what have you, if roads were really snowy and you're on main highways, there's also going to be license plate readers and possibly the toll stops where you are getting a photo of each car. They also would likely have done a cell tower dump and then try to start connecting the information from that cell phone tower to phones that were in the area at that time. We saw how quickly law enforcement in the Adelson case was able to connect the car. And then once they found the car, they were able to search back and get other video. This is very early in the morning. I don't know what the travel time between Rockford, Illinois and Columbus, Ohio is, but it's going to be some period of time to make that travel. And also when we start talking about this as 2 charges of murder and you start talking about the time that it takes to premeditate a murder and how prosecutors explain that, driving from one state to another and then leaving the state to go back home is going to be a period of time that the prosecutors are definitely going to talk about, because this is a drive and this is a drive out of state. And if there was nowhere else this individual stopped, It is going to make the argument for prosecutors a little bit easier than maybe in some other cases we have talked about. They also are able to narrow down the time frame. In the ask for information, law enforcement said that this homicide occurred between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. And then on the probable cause affidavit, we are seeing them listing 3:52 a.m. So they have also used other means to narrow down that time frame and have a better idea of what happened inside the Tepe home. We are not going to have more information about that, I imagine, until we start getting towards a preliminary hearing, or if there is a bond hearing, we will hear more facts of the case at a bond or bail hearing like we did in the Corey Richens case. Those can be extensive hearings with quite a lot of evidence that comes in about why somebody should not be released, because it would not surprise me if this is a no bond period case. Before we talk a little bit more about the connection between the arrested defendant and the victims in this case, the family members did release a statement after the arrest. We're going to take a look at that statement right now. Law nerds, do you know what Team Baker really appreciates? Getting paid. And a big thank you to today's sponsor, Gusto, because not only are they sponsoring today's episode, but they are also the software that Team Baker uses. Team Baker has grown, and that's fantastic, but keeping track of regulations in multiple states for multiple employees can be tricky, and Gusto keeps it simple, all in one place. So you might be asking, Emily, what is Gusto? Gusto is an online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all in one, remote friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. Plus, they include things like automatic payroll tax filing, simple direct deposit, health benefits, workers' comp, 401k, you name it, Gusto's going to make it easy for you and your team. Plus, they allow unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price. No hidden fees, no surprises, which is definitely what you want when you are running payroll. It doesn't surprise me that Gusto is trusted by over 400,000 small businesses. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lawnerd and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lawnerd. One more time, gusto.com/lawnerd. And now let's get back to today's episode. The statement from the family from January 10th, 2026 says, quote, "Today's arrest represents an important step towards justice for Monique and Spencer. Nothing can undo the devastating loss of 2 lives taken far too soon, but we are grateful to the City of Columbus Police Department, its investigators, and assisting law enforcement community whose tireless efforts helped to capture the person involved. We thank the community for the continued support, prayers, and compassion shown throughout this tragedy. As the case proceeds, we trust the justice system will hold the person responsible fully accountable. Monique and Spencer remain at the center of our hearts, and we carry forward their love as we support and protect the 2 children they leave behind. We will continue to honor their lives and the light they brought into this world." And with that, we should talk a little bit about the connection between the individual now charged and the Tepes, because this is Monique Tepe's ex-husband. I went and looked at the records from the divorce, which was a very quick private judge divorce. We're not going to go through all of those records, but it was a divorce with no children in common between the 2 of them. The property that he owned went to him. The property that she owned went to her. She indicated that she was keeping the wedding ring and engagement ring and she had paid for them. And at the end of the divorce proceedings, she ended up paying him a little over $1,000 for debt in common to split that debt. And they were divorced fairly quickly. They were married on August 22nd, 2015. She filed for divorce on May 2nd, 2017. The divorce was finalized on June 15th, 2017. So between the 2 of them, it was a fairly quick, you're taking this, I'm taking this, and then we are done. But there were dates on the docket in 2025. So even though this divorce was finalized fairly quickly on June 15th, 2017, there had been dates put back on the docket. I do not have documents about what happened with those dates. It was noted that it was regarding custody, which would not be child custody. So I don't know what else they would be having that discussion of, because it wasn't in the original divorce documents. So why there were hearings on the docket in 2025, I do not know. I do not know if we will have those documents, but I will be trying to get those because this all happened over a weekend. So the divorce documents I do have, but the other documents about why there were hearings set in 2025, I do not have at this time, and I have not seen those anywhere. However, the other thing I will note is that that was not the only divorce that I found for McKee. In going through the court documents and going through by his first, middle, and last name and his date of birth, there were other divorce records because he was subsequently married on June 30th, 2017, 15 days after the June 15th, 2017 divorce. Also, at the time of the divorce from Monique, he was living in Virginia. She was living in Ohio. It seemed that he was completing his medical residency or fellowship because he is a vascular surgeon. I don't know where he was practicing in, or if he was practicing in the Chicago area. But when I was looking through that, that marriage took place 15 days after the divorce was finalized and his residence was listed out of state. So I do not know if there was a period of separation before the divorce was filed on May 2nd, 2017. But it was of note to me that that was such a swift remarriage. 15 days is fast. And I don't know the circumstances of that, but the divorce in that case was filed on March 3rd, 2022. So he was re-divorced in 2022. So I don't know the circumstances of that. He remarried well before Monique remarried, Monique and Spencer Tepe, based on information shared by the family and photos shared by the family, were married December 13th, 2020. So they had been dating and married after that, and substantially after that. So it was of note to me that there was that subsequent remarriage. Of course, is there always the possibility that someone has the exact same first, middle, last name, and date of birth? I'm sure it can happen. The location of that marriage was also listed in Ohio, though in the 2017 divorce, he was listed as living in Virginia. So those are things of note, but it is something that caught my attention that seemed unusual. So when we are taking a look real quickly at just the docket between Monique Tepe, who was going through the proceedings in the divorce from Michael McKee under her maiden name, when we are looking at this, both of them are listed as their own attorneys. Again, this went very quickly through a seemingly amicable divorce where the documents were drawn up by a lawyer. He indicated that he understood he had the right to his own lawyer and waived it. The property was separated out, which looked a lot to me like what you came in with, you left the marriage with, and then she paid him just over $1,000 for any debts they had incurred together that were still on credit cards. And it was signed off by a judge and it was done. So when we are looking at the court docket on this, you see that there was all of the entries of judgment and things happening in 2017. And then you get to a few just logistical things in 2018. And then things being set on calendar in June 2025, and then a scheduled date that was taken off calendar in June 2025. I don't know what was happening in that 2025 realm, but a hearing had been put on the record. When we have those records, we will take a look, because it is a question of, well, her ex-husband's been arrested. This is a divorce that happened in 2017, seemingly fairly amicably. Everything on this docket is standard forms that you would see in a divorce. There is nothing in it that is really remarkable. The thing of note is that there were some court dates on the record this past summer, and after a divorce had been finalized since 2017. Why were those court dates back on record in 2025? And maybe we will learn more about that in the days and weeks to come, because otherwise it leaves a lot of questions about what was going on. And to answer some of the questions that will invariably come up about the divorce proceedings, the things in the record were standard. They were the forms that are filed in every divorce case, including a standard stay away order and all of the other forms and documents that anyone would get in any other divorce case. Nothing that I see in that looks unusual, except for the fact that there were recent court dates after the divorce had been closed in 2017. That is something I have a question about. We will see if those questions get answered. I am sure friends and family and investigators know more than we do. And with a lot of these cases, the hardest thing is to wait for information to come out in court, which is why I didn't really touch on it before there was an arrest, because there's not much to add. But now that there has been an arrest, we are going to see those extradition proceedings begin in court on January 12th, and then we will know more. So by the time I stream on Tuesday, we should have a few more answers about what the next steps will be as the ex-husband of Monique Tepe gets extradited or waives extradition or has a subsequent hearing for extradition in this case. But he has been charged with 2 counts of murder. We saw that that was charged for December 30th at 3:52 in the morning. And we will learn more about this case as it goes through the court systems. But it is going to take time. I will continue to look at this case. I know there are a lot of questions about it. Hopefully, I've answered the questions about what comes next in the process. There are some questions that we might not see answered in quick succession. And that is one of the frustrating things in the early stages of any of the cases that we cover, is that there are more questions than answers. And we have to be patient and trust that those answers will come in time. I hope this answered the questions that you might have about this case. And I hope that the families and communities affected were able to have the celebration of life and funeral for the Tepes on January 11th, knowing that an arrest had been made in this case. And though the circumstances surrounding this case might be more known to them, they might not be, but at least they know someone has been charged and the court process has begun. Of course, everyone has the presumption of innocence, and this is an individual that has been arrested in this case. We are going to have to wait to learn more about it, because invariably, we as the public will know less than investigators, family members, and community members, but we will see what happens in the days to come. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. I will see you in the next one, and I will see you on stream this week. There's a lot more court happening that we are going to be covering. And of course, as we get into February, we have a lot of hearings that we will be covering, not just the Alec Murdaugh Supreme Court appeal in South Carolina, which he is fighting again to get his trial conviction overturned, but also Corey Richins will be going to court in Utah. And maybe, just maybe, the judge's rulings from the hearing that we were all so brutally kicked out of will be on the docket, so we can go over what the court ruled on stream this week, because I want to know what's going on with the walk the dog letter, don't you? I do too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. I will see you on stream Tuesday. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a law nerd.